Respect starts the second you go quiet. It's a strange truth, but think about it. The moment someone stops talking, the room shifts. People lean in, questions hang in the air. Silence unsettles us, because silence makes us wonder. What does this person know? What are they planning? What's happening beneath the surface? Niccolò Machiavelli lived in a world where power meant survival. Princes schemed, armies marched, and entire republics rose and fell. He saw again and again that the loudest voices were rarely the ones with lasting respect. Respect belonged to those who held their tongue, who concealed their intentions, who acted quietly until the decisive moment arrived. In this video, we are going to spend real time with Machiavelli. Not just the Machiavelli of The Prince, the cold strategist you may have heard about, but the Machiavelli who studied history, who admired the Romans, who wrote about republics, war, and even comedy. We'll see that across all his work, one theme returns: restraint, the art of silence, the discipline of saying less and doing more. Because, as he teaches us, the power of silence is not just absence, it's strategy. And respect, true respect, begins the moment you stop trying to demand it with words. To understand Machiavelli, we need to understand his world. He was born in Florence in 1469, at the height of the Renaissance. Florence wasn't just another Italian city. It was a center of art, wealth, and constant political tension. Behind the paintings of Botticelli and the sculptures of Michelangelo, Florence was also a battlefield of families, factions, and foreign powers. From a young age, Machiavelli was immersed in humanist education. He learned Latin, studied Roman historians like Livy and Tacitus, read Cicero's speeches, and absorbed the lessons of antiquity. For him, the past wasn't dead. The past was alive, a treasury of lessons on how humans behave when power is at stake. By 1498, Machiavelli had risen to become a diplomat for the Florentine Republic. His work took him into the courts of kings and popes. He negotiated with Louis XII of France. He observed the ruthless Cesare Borgia in action. He saw mercenary captains switch loyalties as easily as changing clothes. And he learned quickly that politics was not about ideals. It was about force, deception, and timing. But in 1512, his fortunes collapsed. The powerful Medici family returned to Florence. Machiavelli was accused of conspiracy. He was imprisoned, tortured, and exiled. His career in politics was over, and it was in exile, stripped of power, humiliated, living on a small farm outside Florence, that Machiavelli began to write. He poured his experience into books, not abstract philosophy, not dreams of how people should behave, but blunt descriptions of how people do behave. And what he saw over and over was this: those who cannot control themselves, who cannot restrain their tongue or their impulses, destroy themselves. But those who master silence and timing, those are the ones who command respect. Machiavelli's most famous work, The Prince, was written in 1513. It's often painted as a manual for tyrants, a book about how to be cruel, deceptive, and feared. But if you look closely, it's really a study in realism. Machiavelli is not telling us how rulers should act. He is telling us how rulers must act if they want to survive. The heart of The Prince is simple. People are not as virtuous as we imagine. They are selfish, fearful, and inconsistent. And if you try to rule with pure goodness, you will be crushed by those who are willing to be ruthless. This doesn't mean a prince should be openly cruel. Quite the opposite. Machiavelli insists that appearances matter more than reality. A ruler must seem merciful, religious, honest, and generous, even when behind the scenes he is calculating, cautious, and ready to betray. People don't see truth, they see the performance. Now, where does silence fit into this? Silence is the mask. The prince who speaks too much, who reveals his thoughts openly, gives his enemies a weapon. He becomes predictable. But the silent prince, the restrained prince, becomes a mystery. His enemies cannot guess his next move. His people project strength onto him. Machiavelli's most famous work, The Prince, was written in 1513. It's often painted as a manual for tyrants, a book about how to be cruel, deceptive, and feared. But if you look closely, it's really a study in realism. Machiavelli is not telling us how rulers should act. He is telling us how rulers must act if they want to survive. The heart of The Prince is simple. People are not as virtuous as we imagine. They are selfish, fearful, and inconsistent. And if you try to rule with pure goodness, you will be crushed by those who are willing to be ruthless. This doesn't mean a prince should be openly cruel. Quite the opposite. Machiavelli insists that appearances matter more than reality. A ruler must seem merciful, religious, honest, and generous, even when behind the scenes he is calculating, cautious, and ready to betray. People don't see truth. They see the performance. Now, where does silence fit into this? Silence is the mask. The prince who speaks too much, who reveals his thoughts openly, gives his enemies a weapon. He becomes predictable. But the silent prince, the restrained prince, becomes a mystery. His enemies cannot guess his next move. His people project strength onto him. Consider Cesare Borgia, one of Machiavelli's great examples. Cesare acted with ruthless precision. He removed rivals quietly, built alliances carefully, and never revealed more than necessary. When he needed to be brutal, he was brutal swiftly, and then fell silent again. Machiavelli admired him because he understood timing. He knew when to speak, when to act, and when to vanish into silence. There's a chilling lesson here. Respect does not come from explaining yourself. Respect does not come from pleading or defending. Respect comes when others are left uncertain, even fearful, of what you might be holding back. That's why Machiavelli famously wrote, "A wise prince never says what he truly thinks, because the moment your thoughts are on the table, you are exposed. But when you go quiet, you force others to wonder. And that wonder becomes respect." But Machiavelli wasn't only interested in princes. In Discourses on Livy, he turned his eye to the Roman Republic. This book is less famous, but in many ways more revealing. Here, Machiavelli explores how free republics endure and why they collapse. He writes that republics thrive on tension between the elites, who want to dominate, and the common people, who want liberty. Far from being dangerous, this struggle keeps the system balanced. It's noise, but it's productive noise. Yet when corruption sets in, when leaders grow greedy, when laws are ignored, republics rot from within. The people stop respecting the state. And without respect, freedom dies. What does silence mean here? It means discipline. The Romans were relentless about this. Even their most celebrated generals could be punished if they broke the law. No one was above discipline. The silence of submission to the law, the willingness to restrain oneself for the sake of the republic, created respect that lasted for centuries. This is a deeper Machiavellian insight. Respect doesn't just belong to individuals. It belongs to institutions, and institutions gain respect not by noise and speeches, but by quiet consistency, by holding firm to rules, by restraining impulses, by embodying order. On the art of war, Machiavelli turns to military matters. Unlike Sun Tzu's poetic sayings, Machiavelli writes in blunt, practical terms. He argues that the foundation of any strong state is its army, but not mercenaries. He despises them. Mercenaries are noisy, greedy, and disloyal. They fight for gold, not for country. Instead, he praises citizen armies, modeled after the Romans, soldiers who fight for their land, their families, their republic, soldiers trained in discipline, order, and silence. Think of the Roman legion, thousands of men marching in step, shields aligned, saying nothing. The silence of discipline was more terrifying than the screams of barbarians. For Machiavelli, that silence is power. The undisciplined army shouts and collapses. The disciplined army waits silently, then strikes with precision. He is teaching us the same lesson again, in another form. Noise is chaos. Silence is strength. Machiavelli's private letters reveal the man behind the strategist. In exile, stripped of politics, he described his nights, putting on his best clothes and entering into conversation with the great minds of history through their books, quietly reading, quietly learning. His comedies, like The Mandrake, are filled with scheming characters. And interestingly, the ones who succeed are rarely those who shout the loudest. They're the ones who wait, who conceal, who strike quietly when the time is right. Even in his humor, the pattern is the same. Restraint is the secret weapon. So what is Machiavelli really telling us? That respect does not come from noise. It comes from control. The person who talks too much, who explains too much, who cannot resist reacting, that person loses authority. But the one who holds back, who lets silence hang in the air, who speaks rarely but with precision, that person gains respect almost automatically. This is as true in politics as it is in daily life. In negotiations, silence makes the other side nervous. In leadership, silence makes your words carry more weight. In personal relationships, silence draws people toward you instead of pushing them away. Respect starts the second you go quiet because silence is discipline. Silence is mystery. Silence is control. Niccolo Machiavelli saw princes rise and fall, republics thrive and collapse, armies win and lose. And in all of it, he noticed a simple truth. Those who could restrain themselves lasted longer. Those who went quiet earned respect. In a world drowning in noise, this lesson may be more valuable than ever. Don't waste energy trying to prove yourself with words. Don't reveal your every thought. Don't rush to fill the silence. Because silence is not emptiness. Silence is power. And respect begins the second you go quiet.